Great. Glad to see everybody here, a diverse group. But we seem to have a lot of folks from Kyushu, which is always good. Well, anyways, welcome. And again, let me hand it over to Onodera-san.
Thank you very much. My name is Osamu Onodera from NEDO, New Energy and Industrial Technology Development Organization. NEDO is a Japanese government-related organization which supports R&D, much like the California Energy Commission in California and the ARPA-E program in the federal U.S. So I'd like to thank you very much again to Keizai Society for giving me the opportunity to talk on this very exciting panel. And I hope today to give you a brief overview of the energy situation in Japan, and then hope to give you some ideas on potential US and Japan collaboration. Next slide, please. So this was the strategic energy plan of Japan before 3.11, before the Tohoku earthquake. So if you look at the left-hand side, this is capacity, and the right-hand side is generated electricity. If you look at the capacity side, you can see that we were going to increase renewable energy by a huge amount, and also increase the nuclear power by a modest amount, and maintain other capacities. If you look at generated electricity, you can see that the nuclear power was going to be increased to 50%. That's partly because renewable energy can only generate electricity for part of the time. For example, in the case of solar electricity, maybe 12 to 15 to 18%, something like that. But in the case of nuclear power, they run 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, unless something like the next happens. So this was the strategic energy plan of Japan before the earthquake. And we were supposed to decrease LNG and the coal and petroleum as follows. Next slide, please. But of course, the situation changed drastically after the tsunami and earthquake. And so, out of 50 commercial nuclear power plants, one by one, they were closed due to operation maintenance, etc., and were not restarted. And so, as of now, only 2 out of 50 commercial nuclear power plants are currently in operation. So, as a result, we have lost approximately 26% out of 1,000 terawatt hours and 15% out of 280 gigawatts of capacity. Next slide, please. And so, if you look at the current energy mix in Japan, this is from 1990 onwards. You look at, you can see on an annual basis. So, LNG, coal, and nuclear were about a third each, and the rest was done by oil and renewable. Now, as you can see, LNG has taken the majority of the part, where the nuclear has gone down. So that's how the situation is right now. And of course, energy conservation, as you know, has been a big thing right after the earthquake. Next slide, please. So now that Japan cannot rely on nuclear, so one of the things that we have been pushing for, especially under the Democratic Party government, is to renew our focus on renewable energy. And so we embarked on this exercise of innovative energy and environmental strategy review. And so in September 2012, Japanese government came up with a new plan. And so this, according to this plan, we will be increasing renewable energy from here to, not here, but to target in 2030 at least 8 times higher than the current amount. Next slide, please. And so, as part of that, we have started a feed-in tariff system, which is from 2012, July. And under this feed-in tariff system, it requires power companies to buy renewable electricity at a certain price. If you look at solar, the price was 42 Japanese yen per kilowatt hour. If you look at the wind, it's 23.1 Japanese yen per kilowatt hour. And you can see the figures on the slide. Compared to international standards, these prices are robustly high. But having said that, it is also true that some of the system prices, some of the kind of geographical conditions in Japan are not necessarily especially conducive to renewable energy. And so such a price was considered necessary to provide a kickstart to the renewable energy market in Japan. Next slide, please. So after this, I'm sorry for the this red is supposed to be here, but because I did a bit of last-minute editing, so I apologize for that. But status after the start of the feed-in tariff. So this column here is the amount deployed as of fiscal year 2011. So that's end of March 2011, and this is the capacity of facilities that started operation between April and December of last year. So if you look at solar power residential, there were 4 gigawatts in place. We put in place in just 1 year, or no, 9 months, between April and December, about a quarter of that amount. If you look at the non-residential, again, there were about 800 megawatts in place, about a quarter was increased. And actually there's this much that were approved by the end of December for the fixed purchase price system. So you can see how much of a backlog there already is for solar power. Wind has been somewhat slow, and also the other areas, mainly because these technologies require a much more longer lead time compared to the other technologies. But so that there has been a robust kind of reaction to the system. Can you go back very briefly to the first preceding slide, please? And in terms of the solar power, so although 42 Japanese yen per kilowatt hour was the initial price, there has been a revision and it has been reduced to 30 yen to 38 yen per kilowatt hour, which is still very high. Okay, next slide, please, and slide after. And so next, I'd like to also say that energy conservation, energy saving is also a huge kind of part of the puzzle. So under the 15% reduction scenario, approximately 72 billion kiloliters of oil is supposed to be conserved, or minus 19% of energy is supposed to be conserved, especially which is centered in households and transportation. And so you can see how much energy saving that Japan has to do between now and 2030 in order to achieve its goals. Next slide, please. Let me go back a little bit about the Japanese power sector. Japanese power sector constitutes of 10 vertically integrated power companies. TEPCO, which is Tokyo Electric Power Company, which is probably the most famous electric power company right now in the world, and other power companies, which are all regionally vertically integrated companies. The figures right here refer to the capacity that each of the companies have. One and these are all vertically integrated in that they do everything from generation to transmission to distribution to retail. So one company does everything in Japan, which used to be the case around the world, but has changed drastically in the about 15 years, last 15 or 20 years. Now, having said that, one very, very special thing about Japan is that dividing here, over this side is 50 hertz, and over this side is 60 hertz. This is partly because one side of the technology, this side came from US, this side came from Germany. And they did not get to integrating the two frequencies. And so there is a DC to DC link, which is 1 gigawatt between the two areas. And you can see that this is very, very small compared to the general capacity. And so what happened after the earthquake was that this part of the country lost 40% of its generation overnight in March 11th. And so this part actually had a very, very acute shortage. And for a very brief time, they had to go through rolling blackouts, etc. But they were not able to send that much energy from this side of the country, which was relatively abundant, to over this side. And this is seen as one of the big problems going into the future. Next slide, please. Having said that, there has been a history of reforms. Please go ahead and click until... Yes, that's fine. So if you look at Japan, so there was no competition in the electricity market before 1995. And, but having said that, we have gone through a series of reforms in Japan, as has been the case in all of the other countries. Next slide, please. And so the current system is you still have vertically integrated big power companies, but you have some IPPs providing power to these vertically integrated power companies. There are some parts that are selling to the retail sector. There's also what's called specified scale power companies, which provides power to a limited area and is and is responsible for balancing demand and supply, and also a number of in-house power generation companies. Next slide, please. But having said that, because one of the things that was thought as deficient in the Japanese system was that power companies seem to have a very strong stranglehold on the power sector in Japan. There was a strong call for electricity system reform, and so the Democratic Party at that time embarked upon this reform and came up with a plan of action as follows. Nationwide transmission operation, so try to integrate all of the transmission around the country to at least make it into maybe perhaps two groups. Full retail competition, although in Japan there is retail competition, especially for large-scale kind of users, competition is still very limited, and actually about only 3.56% of the market is held by what are called new energy suppliers, who are suppliers who are other than the vertically integrated companies. And then third is more active wholesale market competition, and fourth, unbundling of transmission and distribution sector. Now, of course, this was decided upon more or less under the Democratic Party government, but LDP has maintained more or less the direction of reforms. Minister Motegi, who is the Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry, actually did say in the speech, in the Diet session, that there is this need for reform, and there is a law that has been put in to the Diet, that have been submitted to the Diet for discussion. Although I must also admit that the details of the reform are not contained in this reform law, and will be probably discussed in future Diets. And so whether and to what extent this will really lead to real competition remains to be seen. Next slide, please. I just wanted to touch a little bit about EVs, which I think Phil is quite passionate about. As of September 2012, there are now over 1,300 quick chargers in Japan and 4,800 normal chargers available to the public. And in fiscal year 2012, a supplementary budget of approximately $1 billion was passed to support the installation of additional charging infrastructure and installation. And this will go to 1/2, 2/3 subsidy of equipment, i.e. charging equipment, and also installation costs. And so this is going to provide a very robust infrastructure for electric vehicles, and should be probably in the future, people will not be thinking about the range anxiety in Japan. So that's kind of one other area. If you look at the smart meters, which is also considered to be one of the kind of key things in what's called a smart grid, Japan had been lagging in the area of smart meters up to now, mainly because power companies were not really interested in smart meters. They were not interested in doing demand response because they actually had a lot of supply. But after the earthquake, they have very little supply. Now, they are much more interested in smart meter deployment. And so, this is the target, if you look at the target around the board, somewhere between 60% to 80% in the next 5 years. And I think the demand response smart meter area will be a very robust area for the future. Next slide, please. So, I hope now you can get an idea of how interesting in the energy market in Japan. And I would like to remind people that although Japan has been overtaken by China, it remains the third largest country in the world. And also, although the economy is not growing that fast compared to China, again, if you look at the energy market and the changes in the energy market, it is a very interesting market. And also, in terms of rules of law, etc., the business environment is very favorable. In that situation, I think there are various configurations of possible Japanese cooperation between Japanese companies and US companies. Large company, large small company, strategic collaboration, IP collaboration, etc., technology, finance, targeting US, Japan, and also global market. And there actually are a lot of examples of collaborations which are working already. I'll pass on some, but the GE, Fuji Electric for smart meters, Panasonic, Itron's smart meters. That leads to my previous point about smart meters. That's why they are all trying to do this kind of thing. Also, Toshiba Landis and Gear, Toshiba SunPower in the area of PV. Actually, if you look at SunPower's financial statement, about 10% of their sales, I believe, is from Japan right now. Which actually is no mean feat. Hitachi Silver Spring Networks in the area of smart meters and other areas. So the list goes on. So there are actually a lot of collaboration which is already occurring, and I think it is a very timely time for Japanese companies to consider collaboration with US companies, because US companies will have a stronger interest in the Japanese energy market. So with that, thank you very much.